Welcome back to Girl on the Gov, the podcast,
where we're shooting the shit with elected officials and candidates running for office to get to know the person beyond the politics.
Because politicians needed a rebrand.
So Mike Johnson is obviously like a weenie hut, like as if we didn't know that. But the man's is trying to give himself like a new name. He wants to be TMZ liar. You know, he's really giving that. And he has continually basically said that the federal government has been failing on the hurricane response for Hurricane Helene, right? Which BT dubs, go see the FEMA rumor response page. Okay, thing one. Thing two, the way in which people get more aid is through Congress because like they control the purse strings. And he is refusing to bring Congress back in session until after the election. When the Biden-Harris administration, has specifically said that the SBA, the Small Business Administration, which puts out a lot of the loans that help people in disaster situations like we're currently seeing, which we will probably see after this horrific hurricane that's set to make landfall or later this week, that it is running low on cash. And before everyone went home for their little stash to do a little campaigny, multiple members of Congress voted against, more funding for, disaster relief in this larger guise of natural disasters, including everyone's favorite Matt Gaetz. Gotta love that. And lots of other representatives from the impacted states, which makes it so much worse.
It's truly so insane. And it's even worse that they, get away with it. And, somehow their base then, believes that Democrats created the hurricane versus like the actual reality, which is like, no, your representatives that you voted in are truly working against your best interests for political gain. And it's just so, so frustrating. And I just really would just stress to everyone listening, like, continue to critically think in times of natural disasters like this. I've seen like people that I know kind of like fall victim to some of the like just disinfo that's out there right now because it is fucking everywhere. And I feel very confident in our listenership that they are locked and loaded and ready to go and on the ball. But check in on your friends and like if anyone, especially, what I love on TikTok these days is that you can see like when people repost stuff and like your friends and you can see like what content that they're engaging with and like are believing to the point they want to repost. Ooh, it's like my favorite tea drama game. And if you're seeing someone that's like reposting, fucking Barstool's take on the hurricane, it's like check in on them because
you know what I discovered sometime in the last 48 hours, which is something that it's for the girlies. So if you're not one of the girlies, like scram for this part of the episode because this is not for you. If you share a link to like a TikTok of yours or elsewise, like say I share it on my Instagram story and I send like, add link, whatever, and someone clicks and actually watches it, it opens up DMs with them on Insta. Okay, now I'm not Insta, sorry, on TikTok. Now I didn't know this, right? And what I can say, because I put a TikTok on my Instagram story the other night, hence how I know this, right? And I just thought it was not only personally like a great take, and I wanted people to hear the rest of my Call Her Daddy, Kamala Harris interview take, but also the comment section was getting wild. So I was like, oh, let's just give people a gift on my personal story, like go see it. The amount of interesting clicks that I got, and boys, some girls too, some people just like, honestly, those ones were like less interesting because it's just like, oh, okay, like that person was like curious what I had to say. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, cool, whatever. But definitely some interesting boys where I'm like, oh, also, I know y'all don't have a little picture for your username, but I can figure out just like an AOL email, like when you put like your school and like a few other weird things in your username that just like gives AIM.
You can figure
I'm like,
it out.
Yeah. And interesting, to say the
Yeah.
very least.
I
So
also
if
love when
you're
you can see when people view
curious-
your profile.
So
Like there is like a bot that keeps viewing my profile that happens to have the same name as this fucking like the most toxic man that I've ever interacted with in my life that I have
Mhm.
used to have a long history with that I no longer speak to. It's interesting. I'm like, I think I know who you are. You keep checking my fucking TikTok as if I also as if I post stuff like, but you keep watching all my old videos. Go ahead.
No, I will say though, to the repost note, to add like more of like a complaint to it, aka I do have a video on this in the drafts, is on like the personal end, it's interesting, but getting the notifications that somebody has reposted the same video, I'm good. We get literally over 100 plus notifications a day just telling us that people have reposted the same video as us. I don't need to know. If I see the video again,
Yeah.
I'll know. I'm good. Like,
Or they even do
thanks.
notifications where it's like so and so whose content you've engaged with before posted a video. I'm like, okay, like
Man.
enough.
It's giving, know what it's giving? It's giving fundraising texting. Like, chill out.
I
Like, I
know.
got the message.
It's so
I
gnarly right now.
I actually, I
Just-
don't know what I did, knock on wood. I think I like somehow got myself off all the list.
Did you early vote? Have you voted yet?
No, which
Because that
am
was an
gonna early
interesting thing
vote.
I've seen too of like
The
that I
resource
didn't
relief.
really
Yeah.
yeah, that I didn't fully realize when I saw that clip, but I need to like double check that it's right. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if people can actually see voter data of like who's early voted or whether it's something where like once you're canvassed and you say I voted already, then they take you off the list if they've had that conversation with you. But I don't know if they actually like can see early voting data before the election.
Yeah.
So I need to
it
double
felt
check that
weird
with
to
my
me
political
too.
team.
Yeah. Let me know what you find because I saw and I've now seen that a few places and granted from people that I normally trust on things, but I still
Yeah.
just feel like it's
Hey,
strange
the
and I
thing
haven't heard that.
is, if it's misinformation that ultimately gets people to early vote, I'm okay with that, you know?
No, wait, LOL.
Like that's some
LOL.
misinformation I can get behind. Like just go early vote anyways, because it's just makes your life easier. And
Yeah. I know. I did early voting for the primaries this year. And you know me, I love to do like an election day outfit. And I wasn't going to be around for it.
and
So
that's okay.
it's just, yeah. So, and I think that's just going to be what it is this year too. Because yet again, I'm not going to be around for it. So,
Yeah.
you know, it is what
Yeah.
it is. The election day outfit thing is going to have to evolve. I don't know how.
You can still put
Prayers.
on a cute outfit and go early vote. Like let's not get it twisted here because
In
we
Vermont?
gotta oh yeah. Anywhere in Arkansas. I don't actually know if Arkansas can early vote, but my point is if you can early vote, put on a cute outfit and go do it. God damn it.
You know what? Actually, let's edit that. You haven't already ordered your varsity voter merch, which you can vote from your account, Jen. You can vote early in most
Which
places.
is what I like to do.
Yeah.
As a California vote by mail girly. Well, we mentioned Call Daddy briefly. I do want to just like talk about it, rant about it for a second, because the general reaction about it, you made the TikTok, is very frustrating, as we both agree on, I think, of just like generally, like all the conservatives coming out of the woodwork in the Call Daddy audience. Hello. But also just like, God, the whole narrative around she doesn't do press, she doesn't do interviews. And then she's like slated on all of these different interviews and press opportunities this week. And then she's getting pushback because it's like not traditional media or anything. It's like, what? That's the best part of it all, that it's not traditional media and that she's not going to CNN and fucking getting the baseline questions. Like she's talking to people with real people audiences and meeting them where they're at. And also tailoring conversations to what that audience might care most about. All the smoke, Call Her Daddy, The View, like that's what you're supposed to do. So the people who like got mad is wild to me. I just like truly like get your head out of your ass.
I just think so many thoughts. I think it speaks to a larger problem that we're having in society. Like right now, I think it's everyone needs to be mad at something.
Yep.
Everyone, and part of that is like maybe something's not going so right that they need some form of escapism, then being mad at something else feels like where they can put their energy and actually get something out of it, which again shows failure of a larger system and what we need to be doing.
Yep.
I think it shows also, which is something, maybe this is a popular opinion, this might be the one thing that me and Jackie Oshray from the Toast agree on, is literally I feel like people, I'm like, where are your parents? Where have your parents been? Because I feel like there's a lack of people that know how to be adults and think.
Yeah.
Like,
can I add something to that list?
Yeah.
Just like there's also such a clout chasey energy out there of people who want to come in with the hot takes because they think it'll get them views or virality. And ultimately, like, it's really damaging. And especially if you're potentially like, you're wanting to defeat Trump in November, but you like want to kind of come in and be devil's advocate or like be the critiquer. It's just like, you're truly not being helpful and you just look like a clout chaser who like wants to come in and have the hot different take and like get people to rage comment on your post to boost its engagement. It's just like there's a lot of that out there right now and it's so fucking frustrating. I can't handle it.
But I think it's
and
also
ultimately who spread disinfo and misinfo because of it.
Right. But I also think, look, that even pulls into the element. And this I know sounds like a little bit hypocritical because obviously we have an online platform. Like part of what we do is like being like online political content creators. However, I do think that there is this, as we've seen with like the percentage of which young people want to be influencers, like that is like their career goal, which I think also is connected to where people feel as though there's economic opportunity and like the fastest way to get there, right? Like I understand the whole dynamic of that, but I think that is so connected to this. We're incentivizing this structure where getting ahead means doing and saying crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like
we're in the most nitpicky era of society of all time. Like somebody could have the most well-crafted, like powerful, meaningful piece of content that hits all the right points, but maybe gets one little word wrong. And like, that's what the whole video becomes about versus like, how about the fact that we're all on the same team and like, we're all pushing for these things that we want. And like, you're going to come in and nitpick and take away from the entire just like value of the entire thing. Like, it's just, that's just so wide sweeping online and it gets very, very frustrating. And especially during crunch time of an election where like people's lives and rights are at full blown risk and it's fucking scary.
And this is what I like really have to ask people besides my question of like, what the hell do you even want? Is are you not exhausted? Because like when I see these videos and the content, the comments, and I have to be on social media for a lot of what we do and a lot of the newsletters we write. So like I can't avoid it. It is exhausting. Yeah. I don't know. Like there's shitty shit. Or shitty shit. But like shitty shit in life, right? First of all, suck it up and figure it out. Like I'm sorry, just like have no patience for it. Second of all, like genuinely, like there are things, there are resources, there are people, there are places, there are things to do that can solve some of those problems or methods in which you can go about solving those problems. So I just can't deal with the unproductive call outs and nitpickiness and like I don't understand.
Sam was like, I don't know, guy. I don't want to talk about Color Daddy. I'm over it. The floodgates open. No, yeah, I know. It's just like I could go on for hours. We needed a rant session. That's what I said. But overall, I will say Color Daddy, the interview was great. It was quick, but it hit such good points. I also just like particularly loved, and I feel like a piece that's gotten a lot of positive feedback that's like such a slept on issue, unfortunately, is like domestic violence and like generally sexual violence, and having a president of the United States like talk so genuinely about that issue, I think was really, really powerful for people. Yeah. And something that like Kamala said was like something we have to continue to talk about. Like we can't, if we don't talk about it, it won't get addressed. So I think that was a really powerful sleeper piece of it.
Totally. Oh my God. That is one of the most under-discussed topics. Not just because sexual assault has become part of the conversation, and I think we've seen it a little bit more post Me Too, goes
Yeah.
in waves, still needs more eyes. But the domestic violence conversation,
Mhm.
it is not spoken about at all. Like genuinely to an insane level. And the amount of people that are in abusive relationships or have escaped them, uh, I don't know what to say that's super concrete here, more than that we need to talk about it more and that we need to
Yeah.
figure out more resources, more ways to prevent this shit. And that goes into the whole conversation about what the hell are we doing with men in this country and the
Mm.
culture around men and raising boys. Because every time that there is some wackadoodle dude, whether it's someone that comes into
P.
my
Diddy.
life as P. Diddy, right? But like, let's just make it even more like specific, right? Like you have a friend that's dating someone that sucks, right? That's like bad news. And again, it becomes my question, where are the parents? How did somebody raise
Title of
this
this
kid?
podcast. Where are the parents?
That should be my middle name at this point, because tattoo it on my fucking body. I think the biggest things that I've said this year, if I were to like make a list of my phrases and things that like we're tallying up, it's literally where are the parents? And the other one would be, now I'm just forgetting it. Oh, sack up. That was the other one I was saying for a while and could not stop saying.
My saying is like men just need intensive therapy, like really intensive deep therapy. They often do have like traumatic shit happen to them, and then they have conservatives prey on them and make them feel seen. And I also feel like I have someone to blame for my issues that I haven't dealt with, and they fall into conservatism.
Yeah, no, it's true. I definitely, look, I have some empathy. I for sure do. I've definitely dated my fair share of traumatized men that like, I do have empathy for it. But I also think that there needs to be something from the parents raising these boys that is stopping this level of out of control trauma to like conservative whacked out pipeline. Because if we were teaching our boys better and how to regulate their emotions and what that looks like.
And then they get into the real world and they don't become like the hot, rich man that the society wants them to be. And then they get really mad and they blame women and immigrants and people for it. And
they really struggle with that. They really
fall
do.
into conspiracies.
Yeah.
Soapbox episode. Warning.
Jesus.
Guys, sometimes on this podcast, a can of worms is opened. And you just witnessed a can of worms. So thank you for sitting through as we, poured out our hearts and feels. And yeah, as always, there are exceptions to the rule. Men don't come for us. Not that there's any men listening, but
we do have a few.
I know. But
I know.
Nonetheless, I feel as though we can introduce our guest.
Okay. Onto the guest portion of this episode, which I think people at this point are like, guys, can we get this show on the fucking road? It's fair. Our guest is someone super awesome, Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill. She is a congresswoman in New Jersey. And there are also some rumors, and we just sound like a tiny, teeny bit, that she may run for governor next year. You guys don't know, Jersey has off years, or like an off year election from the presidential cycle for their governor's races. So yeah. Something to look forward to in 2025, BT dubs. Like there are some seriously wild elections coming after this election. So crazy. But without getting too distracted, we chatted with the Congresswoman about Repro and specifically Repro in the military and just like the lay of the land of that. We realized we hadn't quite covered that. And yeah, so it's a little sort of that. Without further ado, here is Congresswoman Sherrill. All right. Welcome to Girl on the Gov. I genuinely almost just said call her daddy, first of all, which is not our podcast because of Kamala Harris going on Call Her Daddy. But more importantly, we have Congresswoman Sherrill from New Jersey, which is my original home state. So I'm very excited about this on Girl on the Gov today. And we are going to really dive into reproductive rights. Now, This has been one of those conversations that we've been chatting about for truly the last number of years and beyond, but especially in the post-Roe era. And one of the areas that we haven't focused on quite enough is how this impacts our service members. So we know that you definitely have an eye on this area. Can you tell us what the post-Roe era situation has been like for our service members?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because this is something that I've been trying to shine a light on. Many people don't think about the fact that people who serve don't really have a choice about where they choose to serve. You're given orders. As I remember once telling my mom, they're not suggestions, they're orders. So if you are sent to Texas, as 140,000 service members are stationed in Texas, as I was when I did flight training in Corpus Christi, Texas, you are going to have to go to the state with the 49th worst reproductive healthcare stats in the nation. And you're going to face everything that implies, miscarrying in public restrooms, maybe having a miscarriage that goes so poorly that you will never be able to have kids again, maybe not having access to just basic reproductive healthcare. So that's why this is something I've been trying to shine a light on and trying to do just basic things through the National Defense Authorization Act. So the first thing we were successful in doing was getting through the House. We still haven't passed it through the Senate, but getting through the House, making sure that people, instead of just 3 months of contraception prescriptions, can have a year, which is really a standard of care we're trying to move towards, and especially important for service women who might be stationed on a ship for 6 months. So having that year-long prescription can be so important. But beyond that, trying to just get basic stuff in place so that when a service woman changes duty stations, maybe she moves from San Diego, California to Corpus Christi, Texas, that she and really everyone in the service, so that they can inform their families, should have a brief on what to expect with the healthcare system. How does the healthcare system in Texas differ from what they can expect in San Diego? Because you might make certain choices. What is the difference between what you can find, what we say, on the economy or in hospitals that are in Texas versus hospitals that are on bases? Maybe if you are having children, you want to live closer to the base if you think the reproductive health care on the base is better than what is found on the economy. So these are things that women should have access to. And these are things that doctors should be trained on. So if you are treating people in our military, you should know how to advise them, hey, you're now in Texas. You're not going to get very good reproductive health care. This is what that looks like. These are the things you have to be aware of. These are, if you have these problems, this is how you're going to need to take care of it. And it might look very, very different from where you're coming from. If, for example, you're a good Jersey girl and you're now stationed in Texas, you should know what you're going to encounter there. And that I have not been able to get past through the National Defense Authorization Act, which is one of the many reasons I would argue that it is critically important that Democrats take the majority this fall as we fight for some of these just basic protections and basic information that women have a right to.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, I mean, I feel like we've been fighting tooth and nail to get just like basic protections through the House and the Senate, and from just like birth control or IVF protections, and it's just been completely blocked. And so, yeah, I mean, even just like a basic kind of educational level piece of policy like that can't even get through.
Yeah, that should be a no-brainer, but no, we're finding it hard to just pass incredibly low-level things just to inform women of their rights.
Right.
Not just to give women rights, which I'd like to do. I hate to see the rollbacks in rights, but to simply inform women of what their rights are seems to be an uphill battle.
That's insane. And it's just like, again, should be such a lesson, I think, like you said, especially as we go into an election, of just knowing like who's truly fighting for you and who isn't, and who's not even willing to like get you the information you need. I think it's just so backwards. And I think for anyone who thinks that like it was just like abortion, some people don't like abortion, it's like it's so much deeper than that. And you can see that through this example.
That is so well said. You know, I have had women who fought for Roe initially, about 50 years ago. And they would speak about abortion as a freedom, as basic bodily autonomy. And I don't know, I just had trouble seeing it that way, I guess. I just thought abortion was abortion. It was just, healthcare. But they would speak about it far more broadly as far as your rights and what you have a right to. And do you have a right to have somebody else control you in that way? And I will tell you now, after the fall of Roe, I understand it so clearly. When you see legislators trying to control women, trying to say that if you are on a county road and they can catch you trying to seek an abortion, that you can be arrested for that. How are they going to know? Like, what is that control that they are going to exert over you? Trying to say that women can't travel for abortion. So what does that look like in practice? Are you going to get a medical exam every time you try to fly when you're a woman of a certain age? What if you have a miscarriage when you're out of town, and do you have to come back and report to the police and get a medical doctor to say, oh no, this was a miscarriage, not an abortion? I mean, that is what we're feeling as we talk about our freedom, but just beyond those cases of some lawmakers that are trying to implement that in some of our states. But to just see that here I have people in my state of New Jersey, which has very good reproductive protections for women, that women are being asked to go take a business trip as they're pregnant to a place like Texas or to a place like Florida or Idaho. And, they're saying to their employer, I'm pregnant, I can't go. And there are cases now in court where this is being litigated. Like, can you make a person go to another state in this country? So you're seeing your rights in certain states in this country circumscribed as a woman, which is really scary when you feel like, as I was saying to someone, it feels like your citizenship is now only a partial citizenship. You can only enjoy your full citizenship in a state like New Jersey, but if you're a woman, especially a pregnant woman, you can't have full freedoms in other states. You can't make your own decisions. And you put yourself in grave danger with some of what's going on in some of these hospitals.
Yeah. No, that is such an interesting point about having to travel out of state for work and like what could happen in any of those circumstances. And it kind of reminds me, like, when you go into a bathroom and there's no hook for your bag and you're like, a man totally designed this. Like, there's no way this would like not have a hook if a woman designed it. That's that sort of ask that I just feel like a classic like male boss would ask of someone that's pregnant. Like, hey, yeah, of course go. Like, what would be the issue? And just not even, putting those.
Florida, why wouldn't you go there? Right.
Yeah. Which I think there's so many of these blind spots. And I think another blind spot within this conversation too is like how these laws also impact military spouses and that move. And I'm curious what you've learned and also, sort of garnered from speaking with military spouses and just understanding the lay of the land there in terms of this, abortion, such as repro conversation in general.
Right. I mean, what we say in the military is when one person serves, the whole family serves. So when you are a service member and you have a family and you are stationed in one of these places with really horrible reproductive health care, and again, I think sometimes people in some of the states where it's protected don't know what's going on in this country right now. We saw the cases in Georgia where women died, one of them in a hospital where the doctors were waiting for her heart rate and her blood pressure and her fever to get to a point where they could decide that she was at death's door so they could give her an abortion. Well, they miscalculated and she died. And so we're seeing horrible outcomes. We're seeing in Idaho women being medevaced out of the state to get reproductive health care because they're no longer offering basic necessary care there. And so when we have these service members who are moving around the country and who are being asked to do really difficult jobs, being asked to take their family places and then deploy for 6 months or then go off to a war zone with a lot of uncertainty. And then to put the added burden on our families to say, look, not only is this a very dangerous job that you're doing, but we really appreciate it because you're serving your country and it's necessary for our protection. But now we're asking you to maybe put your family in danger. What if your wife gets pregnant, has a tough pregnancy, needs an abortion so that she doesn't, harm her reproductive organs to the point where she'll never be able to get pregnant again? and you can't get that in your state? What if she's actually in the process of miscarrying and can't get an abortion, so she develops sepsis, and that's how the women in Georgia died. So she develops sepsis and can't get the abortion she needs to flush out her uterus. These are happening. These things are happening to women all over the nation. And when we're putting that extra burden on military families, it feels, it just feels as if here we're asking you to serve, and we're putting not only, as a service member, you might put yourself in danger, but you never want to feel like you're putting your family in any sort of peril.
Yeah. And I have kind of like an admin question, just like generally about healthcare in the military. Like, is it separate? Or is it included if you are a part of the military, and also like say you are abroad? And what does reproductive healthcare look like in that situation? Are you guaranteed it, or is there restrictions now within the military too?
So military members and their families have TRICARE, and we are one of the pieces of legislation I wanted to pass was, which we could not get buy-in for, was to say that EMTALA, which is what states are under, applies to military centers, meaning that you can give an abortion in the health or in a life or death situation for the mother, which that health portion is really important, saying that, look, if it's just for the health of the mother, you can do it. We wanted to make that clear for military bases, and that is not incredibly clear. Generally, it's as if a mother's dying. And so it's really difficult to understand exactly what some of our military facilities can do. The VA is slightly different. And then as people are stationed overseas, they might have the military medicine where, again, reproductive health care is limited, sometimes still better than what you find out on the economy in some of these states, but limited, and not what we want it to be. I would like to see full reproductive health care on all of our military bases, including abortion, but it's limited. And then if you are stationed overseas, you can get that care, or you can, it would be country by country what care is available to you off the base and what might be supported off the base.
It's like a whole web of things. Well, to bring it sort of back to the states, and specifically the state of New Jersey, there are some rumors going around, little birdies, chirp, chirp, chirping about a possible run for governor. Can you shed light on this?
Sure. So I have said that I'm strongly considering running for governor, which is the 2025 cycle. New Jersey has that off-year election cycle, and our governor's term limited, which is a really exciting prospect. But quite frankly, right now I'm completely focused on November. We have a lot to do. We have got to get Kamala Harris across the finish line. So much of what I've just been talking about with reproductive health care becomes far worse with Trump in office. He refused to say several times in his debate that he would stand against a national abortion ban. We know in Project 2025, they talk a lot about the Comstock Act, which would limit the ability to mail abortion pills, which is how several people, people across the country sometimes receive abortions. We also know that he has said that he would like to continue to roll back certain protections for women. All of this, he's actually the person that put in place the court that overturned Roe, very deliberately put in place. That's what he committed to do. He said he's proud of it. He's very happy he overturned Roe. And so we know that this is going to be something that, should Trump ever be in the White House again, women will be even more endangered. So we've got to get Kamala Harris across the finish line. Beyond that, we also have to flip the House of Representatives. As a member of the House of Representatives, I have to tell you that the current majority is ineffective, not competent, almost unable to govern. It's why we still don't have any of our appropriations bills passed. We sort of gave up. I think I've seen some statistics that we have taken more votes and gotten less done than any Congress in the history of the country. It's like a sense of constant churn, just trying to throw red meat to the far right MAGA people in the hopes we could eke some things across the finish line, like just what we call a continuing resolution, which is how we just kind of kick the can down the road on our appropriations bills just to keep the government open, to try to get past this election. we saw that under Trump's guidance, they undermined much of what we tried to do with a border compromise. We've seen the difficulty we had in passing a supplemental. So Ukraine was in a far worse position than if we had just passed it at the beginning when we tried to do that. So again and again and again, we've seen this inability to govern. So flipping the House of Representatives is critically important as well. And that's where a lot of the focus is. Certainly my focus is, and around New Jersey, what we're focused on right now.
Yeah. And how are you feeling about flipping the House? Like, what's your gut saying?
So I can tell you guys what my gut's saying, but it really doesn't comport with what I'm seeing polling. So you can all tell me, that
we're not big poll people. Like we have for years.
Okay.
We for years have been like, you guys are crazy. Like in 2022, we were like all on board. We're like, there's no red wave. Like you guys are crazy. Roe was just overturned. There's no red wave. So we are full. We're all ears. Like if you have a hot take, feel free.
I go back and forth. I convince myself I'm not into polls, and then I backslide when I see polls. So, take it for what it's worth, but I feel great. I have to tell you, we are sending the energy on the ground here in New Jersey. We're sending busloads of people over to Pennsylvania. We're having caravans headed over to Pennsylvania. People are knocking doors. They're engaged. They're phone banking into North Carolina. They're working overtime here. I think we've seen some just great fundraising numbers from our candidates and trying to flip some of the seats. We've got some great new members of the House, a great new member, LaMonica McIver, in the House of Representatives. She was just sworn in on a special. We have Nellie Poe, who I think will be the next Congresswoman. Sue Altman's working hard in that seat in the 7th to flip a seat. So we're seeing this great energy on the ground. And I have to tell you, it's hard for me to believe that we won't flip the House of Representatives. Everyone says it's going to be tight. Some of that always depends. The House is funny. It's not always based on national polling. It's often based on, these smaller districts. Do you have a great candidate in the specific place? Is the Republican candidate that you're trying to beat? How good are they? How much have they broken from the party, their Republican Party? Are they normal, or MAGA? What's going on there? So, a lot of this depends district by district by district, but I just have to tell you, it's hard for me to see the fundraising numbers in the Democratic Party versus the fundraising numbers in the Republican Party. I think that seems more telling and compelling than what the polls are saying. And so, for example, just hearing the difference in spending in some of these districts we're trying to flip between now and the last election cycle is pretty amazing. And the numbers people are bringing in, like $2 million quarters, which is unheard of for a congressional seat. And that's quite a few different seats across the country. So the surge in fundraising, the surge in activism, the surge in canvassing and door knocking and phone banking and postcard writing, it just feels very, very good on the ground here in New Jersey.
Yeah, I think across the country too. I mean, that's also just another form and currency of energy. Like when you're giving your money or you're giving your time to go canvas, that just hits different to me than a random poll,
Right. That's how I feel. Like you're kind of putting some skin in the game.
Totally. Yeah, I always do. And this is by no means accurate. So nobody come and say, try and be a STEM girl, because I am not. But whenever I'm out in the suburbs and I'm driving around and I'm seeing yard signs, that's usually my go-to counting method. And you see, especially if you're going over the same areas or, where your parents are from or whatever, you see that shift in what the yard signs are doing election cycle over election cycle. This particular one, I am seeing Dem signs in places I've never seen them. And that in and of itself, I think really speaks volumes. Places where you're like, oh, that is so red. And Jersey has some red areas, which no one talks about. Nobody talks about. My parents literally used to live in Mendham, and there was Trump Corner where they were living. So it is honestly sort of a misnomer. And I am curious, just bring it back to Jersey for a second. People that don't know the realm of Jersey, North, Central, South, all the things. What would you describe the political environment, sort of landscape of the state like?
That's a good question, because New Jersey is a very Democratic state. It's a very blue state, but it's not a very progressive state. I think of it as a very pragmatic state. People want to see great public school systems. They want to see good pensions for people. They want to see strong union support. They want to see great jobs and great opportunity for their kids. So it's kind of very pragmatic. It's looking at people to deliver. That if you're going to be a public servant in New Jersey, then you got to deliver for the people, right? You got to bring home money for the Gateway Tunnel project, and you got to get rid of the state and local tax deduction cap, and you've got to invest in our school system. You've really got to listen to people and really deliver for them. And I think that's why, as people are assessing candidates, I think when they see somebody, like, for example, our Senate candidate, Andy Kim, who so obviously is in politics to serve people, to serve something greater than himself, to not engage in self-dealing or to make a buck, but to actually serve the people of New Jersey. That is really compelling right now. I think especially in the aftermath of Menendez, to have somebody like that who is going to so particularly put people over self-dealing. I think that's really important to the people of New Jersey.
Yeah, for sure. I think across the country, people are feeling that and just like want to trust who they're voting for. And yeah, I think we have some great candidates up and down the ballot across the country who are showing that to people, which is good. Well, before we wrap, I'm curious what you suggest for people to look out for in New Jersey when it comes to this election, and just generally, like, I guess, closing notes on as we are in this final push and this crunch time of October, like what you suggest people do or focus on or just put their energy towards.
Yeah. So I think we all have to work incredibly hard to ensure people know how to vote, know that their vote counts. I think we are kind of gearing up for more and more misinformation coming out from MAGA Republicans who are trying to undermine our system right now. We saw it in the last election. In fact, our own Speaker of the House was the architect of an amicus brief full of misinformation about voting. So we're going to see some of this pushed out. And I think making sure that all voters here in New Jersey know the system, feel confident in the system, and know how their vote is going to be registered and going to count is very important. When I was on, I kicked off a bus as they were headed into Pennsylvania. So I got on the bus and one woman said to me, "You know what, Mikie, this is doing something." So as we all heard from Kamala Harris, do something. That's what we've got to continue to do. So if you can get on a bus and get into one of the swing states, great. If you can phone bank, if you can write some postcards, if you can just have conversations with your neighbors about what it is you think the Democratic ticket represents and why it's so important, go do something. Go have those conversations. Go knock on those doors. And I think we're going to really see some great results. Let's face it, these have been some really tough years with COVID, with everything going on in the world. A lot of people feel a little overwhelmed. So if you're finding that in your neighbors and friends, focus on some of the local elections. Focus on what's going on in your town and the great representatives that you're trying to elect in your town, or what they've been delivering in your town, because that's also important, I think, to build that sense of not being overwhelmed, and then people can vote up ticket. So we're doing all those things here, and like I said, I'm feeling really good on the ground here in Jersey.
Love it. We love the good vibes send off. I think that is truly perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and fingers crossed from some good vibes come post November 5th. All the fingers crossed, all the toes crossed, all the things. And we look forward to having you back on.
Well, thank you both. I really appreciate it.